How's it going, guys? What I wanted to do in this video is actually talk to you all about making complex things simple. What you see in front of us here is a hot water system in one of our buildings. And for those of you folks who are familiar with how these systems work, you can see that we're pretty much straightforward on a lot of what you see in front of us. We have our hot water pumps, we have our boiler, and for this system we also have our heat exchanger. This is just one of the systems that I want to talk with you all about. And basically what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be demonstrating in this video how to take some pretty complex systems and simplify them within Metasys MUI. And what do I mean by that? Well, when we are working with equipment, depending on the type of building and the types of systems within that building, what we can have are some pretty elaborate setups. We can have one controller that will control multiple components or parts of multiple systems, which is what we have here. So what we have done is taken all of the complexities of those multiple controllers and compressed it into an easier to understand view. And I want to show you a little more about what we have. Of course, you can see here this is going to be the domestic hot water side, and we also have a pool heating system as well that is part of this system. Now let me show you a little more detail of where we began. This is the control drawings for this particular system, and what we have are multiple controllers on this system that are all working together for each of these systems and making them operate. As you can see here, this page of the drawing, we have a boiler control system, okay? And on that boiler control system, what we have is just the two boilers for both the heating loop as well as the domestic water, okay? We see all of the related components and things here. We see the sequence of operation, and this is the boiler points. These are everything that is on that one particular controller. If we scroll on down, what we have further is we have another controller that has all of the pump control on it, and you can see that in this page here. Okay, we have our pumps, our three pumps here. We also have chilled water that is fed from a central cooling plant, and all of that is controlled using a separate controller. Okay, here's our pool unit, our chill water loop, the pump flow layout, and that sort of thing. So in all of the points you can see here for the pumps and chill water control, two separate controllers that are working together to provide heating and cooling to this particular building. That is due to the location of the components, that is due to the size of the building, and that sort of thing. Now what we've done, of course, we have broken it out and simplified it. I want to make things as simple as possible when we work on these systems. I don't need a bunch of junk wondering if a certain pump is related to one system or if it is related to another system. Okay, by breaking those things out, you can simplify it and you can make it much easier for people trying to go back, troubleshoot, and see what is going on within your system. Now what I'm going to do is, of course, begin with SCT. This is something that many of you guys are familiar with. Whenever you are building out MUI, you know that all of the work that you're going to do is going to be within SCT. We already have our spaces set up for the equipment of where we're going to be putting it in the building, and all I've got to do now, I've got to build the equipment definition, and I've got to pull in the points that I need into that equipment definition and then add it to the space. This particular unit, what we have is we have a hot water system in one building. These buildings are very closely related. There's basically two hot water systems working together. We have a boiler system which is fed from this controller here. During the summertime, when we do not need as much heating, that boiler system is what provides reheat for the building. Okay, that is all through here. It's all of the stuff that is on that controller here. In the wintertime, we have a steam bundle. That steam bundle is located in a different section, and of course it is fed off of a different controller. In fact, this controller here feeds the hot water system as well as the chilled water system that serves this building. The steam control is part of this single controller, and what I want to do, I want to break it out where we have just a single equipment definition where we can go in and simplify a lot of what we see, to where we can have a page similar to this, to where only the components related to a certain part of this system are shown. Okay, I only want what is related to the heating on one page, what is relating to another part on another page. Okay, and that's what we're going to be doing in this video. Okay, so we begin within SCT, and I have to create an equipment definition. That's going to be the starting point. So as you all know, we go up to our server, and within the server I have a folder for my equipment definitions. So I'm going to drop it down, and just to keep things neat, we have a subfolder for all of this. And of course I have a folder here where I will be putting that equipment definition. I will go up to the facility, prepare rapid archive, insert equipment definition. That's what I want to select there. And once I select that, I will get a pop-up window where I will be able to do a couple of things. I will be able to create a folder. I will be able to name the equipment definition or whatever. You know, if I wanted to create a new folder, that's what I could do here, but I'm not going to be creating a folder. I'm going to be putting it in this folder that is already existing. I do not want to create any subfolders, but I can do that if I wanted to from here. So I'm just going to select next. This is going to bring me to the page to where I can name this equipment definition. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and delete this out, because you always want to try to keep things as organized as possible and name them appropriately. So we get our name typed in. Of course, you have to make sure that you do not copy anything that is already there. Okay, I have it named correctly, and I'm going to hit next. Once I have this, I'm going to change the system subtype. This is something that I highly recommend you do. You want to make sure that you select the right subtype, and that way if you have the some of the troubleshooting tools and things like that set up within your system, that will help make your system function much better. Of course, I'm going to go down here and select central heating, which is exactly what this is going to be. The authorization category, I'm going to change that to our hot water systems. Okay, that's another aspect that we use within our systems. Now I select next, and of course this is going to be a summary screen, and now I hit finish. Okay, once I hit finish, it has created the equipment definition for me. Now, one thing I want to do, just as a little bit of cleanup, I have a couple of other equipment definitions in here from an earlier project that I'm going to delete out. While we are here, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. And that way we can just keep things clean. And that's something that you should do within your database as you are making changes. Go through and keep things as clean as possible. Now that we have our equipment definition created, I'm going to simply double click into the equipment definition, and what it's going to do is just basically give me this blank screen, okay, this blank page. Okay, in order for me to do any kind of editing, I simply press the edit button, and now I've got to go down and I've got to pull in the points that I want. If you have watched some of my other videos on creating the equipment definitions within your system, you'll know that a lot of times you can simply grab the controller and drag that over into this pane, and it will then pull all of those points for you into the system. Since we are not going to be using all of these points, what I'm going to do is simply go through and select the individual points that I want. And of course, for this controller, since this system here is the controller that runs the boiler system, the majority of these points will be pulled in. Okay, I do not need the meter and things like that pulled into the equipment definition, so I'm just going to highlight up top. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and I'm going to grab all of those points that I need as part of the boiler system. So once I grab those, I'm just going to select and I'm going to drag those out onto this window here, and you will see it pulls them into this view. But we're still not done. If you remember, what we have is a large system that is run off of two separate controllers. The next thing that I'm going to do is scroll down to where my other controller is, where I have other parts of that system, and there again, be organized when you set these up. You can see here all of these points are identified for this particular building. You can see this labeling that I have here compared to the other. All right, and what I want to do is simply select those particular points. I'm going to grab the top, I'm going to press my select and grab the bottom, and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag those over into this area as well. Okay, and when I scroll down, you will see that it has now grabbed both all of the points from both of those controllers that we need. It did not grab any of the points that we do not need. It only grabbed the points that we need. This panel here is where you set up your display, okay? If you want to, the points that you want displayed within MUI, that is where this is going to be coming into play. And I can go right here and I can select display data just from this top check right here. And what it will do is it will pull all of those points in just as I have them here. You can move them up, you can move them down, or whatever. Kind of the way that I do things, just the cleanliness of how I like to see stuff within our system. I do it a little different. Up top here, what I will do is I will actually go through and organize these up top, in the equipment definition. So I can simply go up here and select an individual point that I want, and I can move it where I want it within the system. And that's what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to go ahead and get this organized the way that I like to see it, and then we will come back and talk a little bit more. Okay guys, I just wanted to go ahead and bring you all back in, and I have begun the process of organizing this system, but I wanted to take some time to mention another thing that you should pay close attention to, and that is your labeling. Make things appear cleanly within your system. And what I want to do here is I'm actually going to change this labeling and to include that this is the boiler system enable point. Okay, each of these systems have their own enable set point, and you can go in within programming and set up a single point for these, but for now I am simply going to add a name that will differentiate between these two: boiler system enable, summer only. Okay, I can leave that off in winter, but I'm just going to go ahead and delete that out. I think that's pretty clear right there. And what I'm going to do here is simply change this as well, just to make it a little clearer, because there again, folks, try to set this up to where it is easy for everyone to understand. I'm just going to label this heat exchanger. If I'd learned to type, and of course I'm going to go on the outside of this as well and type in. That way when someone looks at this, they can better understand what is going on. And let's see, I also want to organize my pumps a little bit better. And I mentioned earlier, guys, that you can organize things here, but me, I like organizing things up here first and then simply adding them to the display once I get them organized. Okay, we have our hot water pumps, our secondary hot water pumps, and you can see this is a command for pump 1, but our status for pump 1 is all the way down here. Okay, and I like to clean that up and have them grouped together. Okay, I'm also going to bring up my output by simply clicking on that, and now I have my status, my command, my output, and you can put these however you like. If you like having the status up top like that, that will work for you. It's just whatever you like, whatever works best for you. And of course down here it is just the same. This is pump 2. I'm going to invert these. I'm just going to bring my status up above the command, and then I'm going to put the output in between the two, just like this. This is our secondary pump in this system. Of course I do have my supply and return temperatures, the differential. I also have boiler alarm, my system reset, and all of the stuff related to both of those systems. Okay, and of course it is recommended that you go through and organize this and make it work well for how your system is. Make it as easy to understand as possible. The pumps that we have here, we have two separate sets of pumps. These pumps here are the ones that are for the heat exchanger. When that heat exchanger system is running, these are the pumps that will be used for that. When we are on the boiler, then of course it is going to be these pumps here that are used. So that's something that you can do. You can go in and change your labeling or whatever you want to make that match. I'm just going to currently leave these how they are, because we know within our system how it is done. Now you can see here I do have a few points that have already populated here, and that is simply because where I was working with moving them around and all of that, I did put the checks there. But what I'm going to do, since I have this laid out here the way that I want it, I'm simply going to click where it says display data, and what it will do is check everything. I'm going to uncheck it and then check it again, and that way it puts everything in the order that I have it up here. As you can see here, everything matches. And once I do this, what I need to do now, I'm going to press save. Okay, once I press the save, it's going to take it a few minutes, and it has saved what I've done. Now we're still not finished. What we have to do now is open in Discovery. This is where the controllers, you're going to see both of them displayed within this system. Now I want you to pay close attention to something. You see where it comes up as equipment name, it says HWS. You need to change that. Don't leave that as a default name for your system. Put some type of identification in there. For us, what I'm going to call this is MRH hot water system. That way it is a little cleaner, and you can understand which device it is when you're going through your equipment within here, because whatever you name it here is what it's going to name it under the equipment tab. And when you try to go through finding out exactly which one that is, if you have 3 or 4 things all labeled the same for HWS or whatever, then it can be harder for you to differentiate between the two. Not impossible, but it's just something that is a way to make your system work a little cleaner. You know, if I were to take this and create another control point off of it, or a control block off of it, what it would do is it would pull the same name that currently showed there. For example, the lighting control that is on this controller here, if I were to pull that and create an equipment definition just for them, it would also name it HWS. So take the time, change that name just like what I've done here. Now, as far as some of the other points about the equipment discovery, since we already have our equipment pulled in here now, since we pulled our point in from the previous page, I have the option here of telling the system what this equipment definition is going to be serving. And of course, what this is going to serve is a series of reheats for all of the VAVs as well as the air handler. This is where I want to add those to where the system is linked to that. If you go into MUI, you have the equipment relationship. This is where you set that up. So I'm going to click on my equipment tab here, and then I'm going to drill down within my system, and I'm going to find the equipment that this is tied to. Okay, I'm going to drop this down. You can see here it has created the equipment for me in here partially, or it will once we get finished. But what I need to do here, this is the air handler that serves this building. I am going to grab this air handler, and I'm going to grab and drag it over to where it says serving, and I'm going to drop it just like that. It drops it into there and tells me that it is binding that to this if I was to drop this list down, click on this, and you can see here is that air handler. You can add them this way, but I find it just as easy to click and drag. These VAVs that are here, okay, all of these through here, these are VAVs that are within this building. So I can simply scroll down, grab all of these VAVs, drag them over as well, and drop them into this serving column. And of course it will pull those within. You can see here it has now added all of those to the system and built that relationship to this hot water system. Okay, it's much easier to do that now than it is to try to come back and do it later. Okay, once I have all of this done, I have linked my equipment, I'm going to hit save. Now once I hit save, you're going to notice it take a few minutes, and then it will come back to and let you know that it has created the equipment definition for you. Okay, you can see it here. It has come up. It says successfully created one equipment objects. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK. Where's it at though? I don't see it. Okay, this is FAC hot water. This is chill water. It has not appeared. What do I need to do? You need to go up to the top here on this bar, right click, refresh all tabs. Okay, once I do the refresh all tabs, you can see it takes me back to my first tab. So I'm going to go back into my equipment tab. And when I drop this down, I start drilling down into the system. You can see here this arrow. That means it's wanting something to be downloaded because there's been a change. Once I select this, I'm going to drop this down. You can see all of these arrows beside all of these devices, and that is because I have linked them to that equipment definition that we created. In fact, here is that equipment definition that we created. Okay, I can double click on this. It's going to give me some basic information about it. It's going to tell me the points. It's going to tell me the authorization category, which if you remember earlier, we had all of that linked and all that. If I already had a graphic set up, I could actually tie that graphic in here using SCT. Of course, this being a new system, we don't have a graphic for it, so we're going to be building a graphic for it later. Okay, but here are all of the points that are within that equipment definition. And now what we have to do is we've got to add this equipment to the space. Okay, once I click on spaces, I need to bring this over to where I can edit. You can see there again we have that arrow, and that is because something has changed within the database and the system is just letting us know. Now once I drop this down, I'm going to drill down to the particular building, which is right here. And of course, where we're going to be adding that is to this equipment folder. Okay, you can see currently I have a few devices in here. Once I can drop this list down, and see what those devices currently are. You can see here's the air handler, the VFDs, all that kind of fun stuff, the chill water system, and I'm going to add the hot water system. I'm going to click edit, and I can either add it over here by clicking add and all that kind of stuff, or I can simply grab, click, drag and drop. Now be careful doing this because I have added equipment to the wrong folder a time or two. So make sure that you're in the right place and just click and drag, and now you can see that it has added that there. Once I hit save, we now have our equipment created. We now have it added into the equipment folder, and we are ready to download our server. This is where you need to make sure that you have plenty of backups. Always keep backups of your system. Not just one or two, but keep multiple. We typically try to keep backups on a few different computers. That way, if something happens to one, or if something fails, then we can simply go back to the previous work that we did prior. What I'm going to do now, since all of this is set up, with this type of change, sometimes you can do a synchronization, but with this type of change, I'm going to do a download. Sometimes I have had things to fail in the event of some changes that I've done. What I've done previously to making any of these changes, I did an upload of the server. I have now made those changes, and I'm going to do a download. So now then what I'll need to do, tools, manage archive, and once I select that, I'm going to go download to device, and of course I'm going to be downloading the server. And you can select only UI spaces and equipment. And again, this is something that at times, depending on what I do, I have noticed that sometimes that works perfect, sometimes it does not. In this case, due to the changes that I have made within the system and just knowing our system, I'm going to do a full download. You do not always have to do a full download. In most cases, if you're doing basic stuff, you can simply do a synchronization, especially with Metasys 12, and it seems to work fine. I know Metasys 11 had a few issues doing synchronizations that we had to work around, but with Metasys 12, they do have that problem resolved. I'm going to click through and go all the way down to here. I'm going to communicate via site director, test login. And once it comes up, login OK, press next, and I am basically there. I'm going to just go to the last thing, and I'm going to hit finish. And what it's going to do now, all of those changes that I have done within the database, it is going to load those into the server. Now it's going to take that a little while to do. And if I go to my view tab, you can see it's kind of struggling just a little bit now, just because it is working. Our server is doing quite a bit of work right now because it's having to transfer all of that data that was within our database here. It is reloading all of that into our server. If you are browsed into MUI at this time, it will boot you out because it's basically resetting it once it gets everything done. What I'm going to do now is simply let this run for a while, and then we will come back and I will show you what the final product is of the work that you just seen us do. Okay guys, now that the download has completed, we have logged back into the system, and I want to note that if you guys remember that in SCT, the tree under the spaces is what matches the panels that you see on the left hand side of your screen within MUI. For those of you guys who are not 100% familiar with that yet, I know that there's still a lot of folks out there that are trying to learn MUI, and so that's something that you just need to remember. Okay, what you see within the tree of SCT under the Spaces tab, okay, the editing and stuff that you do there on the left hand side is what appears here. Okay, now we're going to go into our equipment page, and we're going to drop down to the equipment definition that we created. You can see here, Music Hall Hot Water System. That is the one that we created. Once I select that, and I can see here, I'm getting some data from it. I can see a lot of the values already here. Now, this will default to the points that you have selected at the top of your system. Okay, those first few points is what's going to be displayed first. You can change that here if you go into settings, and you can move those around and all that kind of stuff. But once you log out and log back in, it's going to default back to this particular view here. This is just the text view, guys, because what we're going to do is we're going to get graphics and stuff set up on this eventually, and we will have a much simpler system then. But right now I'm just going to click into this, and we see the equipment data. Now this is raw out of the box. Okay, we can see here at the top of our screen, you remember that labeling that we did? This is where it's going to display there, and that's where it's going to come in handy. This is, of course, the boiler system command here. It is false. This is our heat exchanger command. It is true. This is our outside heating set point, and that sort of thing, and so on. We see our isolation valves. All of that stuff is down through here. This is the data from those two devices, two separate controllers that are now pulled in to a single equipment definition and into a single space within our system. Okay, and this is how things can be used. This is some of the steps that you can use to simplify stuff. Of course, right now you can see how it has trends displaying here. We have schedule here. That is something that we currently, and we do not have in this system. Of course, this is a hot water system. We do not have schedules tied to this. So in our dashboards and things like that, which that's going to be a separate video, that's how we can customize, we can customize how this looks. Okay, if I go to page 2, you're going to see here it's going to bring up our graphics if we had any, which we currently do not, but if we did, that is where this would display. Now this is what I want to show you here under the equipment relationships. Do you remember inside SCT where we pulled in the air handler to the device? Then that's where we will see that here, okay, that serves this equipment here. Here's our air handler. We have all of the VAVs and stuff like that underneath this. You can see them listed here. This up top, you can see these two devices here. This is the two network devices, the two controllers that was used to create this equipment definition. Okay, that's something that you guys need to remember. This was two controllers that were running different parts of the system that were used. Okay, we're just basically trying to simplify things like what we did in the other examples that I showed you. Okay, we can see all of the equipment activity and stuff like that, but that's for a later time, future discussions. But guys, what I wanted to mainly do is show you how you can simplify your system, how you can pull multiple controllers and do a single equipment definition from here, and then you can build the graphics where it brings things a lot closer together to where it really helps you to understand what's going on in your system much easier. But guys, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave those down in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Also, guys, please share these videos with anyone that you know that is doing this kind of work. That way it can kind of help them out and you can help the channel out. Also, be sure to check out all of the links down in the description below. Those are affiliate links to Amazon and what you buy through those links. Even if it's something that is not linked there, if you just go through Amazon to through one of those links, then anything you buy will help to support the channel and what we do here. But guys, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Any questions you have, visit my website at systemcontroltech.net. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.